Good evening, how are you? Sorry, I'm not a traditionalist. I don't want to be behind that thing because I'm going to go really fast and I'm going to touch on a lot of things, so I prefer to walk around. Actually, I've preferred to interact, but it's not possible. Because I'm going to run, I can't say thank you to everybody, but I'm very privileged to be here. I was very privileged to go to the Blood Bank yesterday with Ronald, Dr. Katongole, the team. The work that you guys are doing is very inspiring. And so because of that, I'm going to decide not to be as disruptive today because we don't want to raise the blood pressure because you guys still need to go and donate blood. I'm going to run a lot, and because of time, but the message is super important, and a lot of the message that we're going to cover today, most of you have already heard, because actually it's not about technology, we're going to be talking about leadership, but it starts with a new operating environment. I had to change the title of the presentation. I used to call it Digital Now. I realized when you put the title Digital Now, people think you're talking about technology. And what we're really talking about is all the changes that have happened around us, and they're really massive and exponential, and we'll try and unpack them. The most important conversation today, guys, and I think Nabu touched on it, is purpose and reskilling. We're entering an environment where nothing is ever going to stay the same. We're going to talk about that a little bit. None of our roles are going to stay the same. None of our business models are the same. And this can be very exciting, but it can also be very challenging. And we really need to stay away from technology buzzwords. We need to stop talking about fourth industrial revolution, digital transformation. We really need to talk about the customer and behavior. All of you guys have smartphones. All of you have one of these things here in this room. And you hear a lot of talk about digital transformation, and it's really about behavior. Digital is not a channel, it is a way of life. We spend 95% of our day here. And every time we spend our day here, we're disrupting. Dr. Katongole said something, because every time people are talking, I'm trying to explain how technology is changing lives. We saw Dr. Dominic Barton here. He found him through Google. If Google wasn't there, $64,000 wouldn't have happened. And we don't understand these things, but they're playing out. Technology has completely changed everything, but it has also made life extremely exciting, extremely easy, but it's never going to be the same. If you're in this room today, your operating model has already been disrupted because of this device. And we'll unpack that. But before we start, I always ask this question, and I'm sorry, a lot of people in Uganda have heard me ask the question, but it's always to set context. How many of you in this room, put up your hand if you went out to buy a newspaper in the last 3 months? Like to go and buy one. Put up your hand. So I see about roughly 10 hands. Ronald, how many people are here today? 10 out of 500? Dr. Katonga, how many? Okay, so let's say it's 2%. Why do I start with that example before going to the presentation? It's context. 2% of you put up the hand. There's a whole Vision Group brand there. What do you think is happening to them? And I'm not going to talk about Vision Group statistics, but every modern media newspaper company is losing about 60–70% of their circulation in the last 18 months. The scary thing about that example, guys, is not about them losing the circulation. The scary thing about it is that none of you are thinking about Vision Group. You're not even thinking about them. You don't wake up hating Vision Group. You're just getting your news differently. 2% is a scary statistic. If your business lost 70% of their readership or their circulation or their numbers, in 18 months you'll die. But that's what you guys are doing to Vision Group. And that's what you're doing to Monitor. And you don't think about it logically. It's happening subconsciously. And if I asked you who is disrupting Vision Group, you can't touch it. You can't feel it. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Google, platforms that do not exist in your geography, platforms that all of you use every single day. And we'll talk about the platform economy later, and we'll rush through a lot of things. But this is the point of the modern world. The internet has completely changed the world as you know it. You're not going to die because of a guy next door, and we need to stop talking about competition. You're going to die because you're not in Edgar's life. You're going to die because you're not here. That's why you're going to die. And you won't even think about it. You don't wake up thinking that you've just killed Robert's business. You don't even ever think about him. But your news started happening differently. And this is going to play out in every single one of your domains. And guys, by the way, this is not a the world is ending presentation. It's about to create a burning platform. That none of your operating models are the same. Because Edgar lives here, and his behavior is not going to change. It's not going to slow down. And the internet and accessibility is going to change every single business model as we know it very fast. The main point of this presentation is to talk to you guys about how the internet has changed everything. Our worlds existed in a very, very linear fashion. Very linear, very predictable fashion. We spent a lot of time today talking about professions. What the internet has gone is democratized information and basically commoditized professions. Anything you can ask me now, in the next 30 seconds, I'll give you an answer. Yet your relevance when you came into this room was everything you studied up to this point. In a world where knowledge is a click away, that is no longer relevance. And we'll talk about curiosity and creativity. But we don't think about these things. We only think about them when our business dies. We talked about vision group. You think about if you're a general practitioner today. Think about if you're just at a clinic and you're earning 20 million in consultation fees. Think about what's probably happened to you in the last year. Because now Dr. Katongole will go to Google and get his symptoms and walk straight to the pharmacy. And you won't realize it, but every day that 500,000 or 300,000 of the guy who'd walk in and ask you, sir, these are my symptoms, and then you charge 300,000 is gone. And these examples are not going or playing out because they hate the conductor. They're playing out because you're served differently. Because the world of technology makes your life so much better, but exactly kills every model, every single model out there. And the point is not to talk about it killing every model. The point is, how do you respond? And the point is not technology. The point is customer. Because if you're spending your time thinking about the customer and where he is, you'll get this conversation. If you're thinking about product, you won't. But the world existed around selling a product, not listening to the customer. Vision Group can rebrand 1,000 times. They can spend $1 billion on advertising. You'll never go and buy a newspaper. The average age in Uganda is 16. 80% is under 35. It's the most digital literate country in the world. You don't know it. If you're running a business, you're 2 or 3 years away from being irrelevant to most of the Ugandans. Most of you in this room represent 1 to 2% of the population. You represent the income now. You don't represent the income tomorrow. And you're doing strategy and running models based on an old linear world. It's over. That world doesn't exist. I spend a lot of time with companies here in Uganda, and we try to talk about digital transformation. And every time you go into a conversation with a company about digital transformation, they'll say, no, we have an IT department and we have a couple of developers. And I'm like, that's not the conversation. It's like, do you know your customer? Are you serving him faster and quicker because someone else is? Are you listening to his data? Are you pivoting 100 kilometers per hour? We talked about speed. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not using data today as a company, you're already dead. It is just lag. When I talk about the vision example, I'm talking about media and some industries that are already in it. The others, it's lag. I see some banks here, they know me. We talk a lot about where they need to go. You imagine a bank. In South Africa, I bank with FNB. I haven't been inside a branch in 5 years. 5 years. When we talk up to banks about the fact that branches is not a thing and that they should be spending time reskilling, because when we start to bank digitally, that doesn't happen. You won't walk into a branch. But they're thinking of it as a channel. It's about convenience, choice, which has happened because the world opened up with the internet, and the internet opened up when we had these devices. And guys, it's not slowing down. Because of time, I'm going to skip 90% of the slides, and I'm just going to hit some key points. It's not slowing down. It's not technology, it's behavior. Because if I took your smartphone from this room, you won't last an hour. And yet you don't understand when I talk to you that you need to be on the smartphone. You think, no, I'm going to get an Indian company and pay $10,000. Are you serious? Because that's what happens. Because if you're not here, you will be dead. Because we don't hate you. We're just not in your life. There's so many models, and because of the interest of time, we can't talk about them. When we talk about technology and the internet and what it has done for the world, we're trying to talk to people about the fact that user behavior has changed. The internet has opened up the world, has democratized information, has killed boundaries, and the most important thing is that the power is with the customer. You can't see this stuff, but everything you see in orange is how the world existed in the industrial era. The world was local and linear. Today it's global and exponential. Vision Group didn't get killed by a newspaper. Here they got killed by Twitter. You can't touch it, you can't think about it, you can't feel it, and the whole industry in Uganda is going to die. We talk about knowledge and expertise replaced by curiosity and creativity. By the way, I will confess, Professor Lumumba is one of my heroes, so I'm not having a go at professors. But I'm talking about the fact that today, it is more important to be curious than to have a degree. 90% of people coming out of university in Uganda cannot find employment. We still applaud jobs, not creation. The top 20 companies in Uganda, in the US, have removed the university degree as an entry requirement. My sister is here, I don't want to embarrass her, but we've spent a whole lot of time on education. I can't speak about education today because of time. Our school system is preparing people for a world that doesn't exist. And we don't want to talk about it. But it's real. Because I have 2 degrees in engineering, ladies and gentlemen. And the stuff that I did, I see MTN here, I was in MTN. The stuff that I did 20 years ago is now done by the node itself. So a telecoms engineering degree coming out of my career is now a useless substrate. It's not that the person is useless, the degree is useless. His ability to apply knowledge is relevant. Because the node using AI and machine learning can self-automate and self-heal. And this is why this conversation is about evolution and learning and purpose. Because your environment has changed and it's not slowing down. Because everything we talk about, when we talk about convenience, choice, using data, is changing your behavior. And it is not going to slow down. The most important thing for your business is to ask, where is my customer today and how do I serve him? And your customer, ladies and gentlemen, is here. This is where he is. So when somebody walks in and talks to you about digital transformation, you better listen, or you will be a statistic. When we talk about scarcity and product push, it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. We existed as a world, and I'm not an economics, I'm not a professor in economics, but before the internet and technology revolution, we existed in the economics of scarcity, which means that a product was produced and it was relevant. We're in economics of abundance, which means the user has choice. So he doesn't care about your product, he only cares about his experience, and we'll talk about experiences later. Which is why you have to listen and engage. And there's so many examples I can tell you about product versus choice. The operating models of command and control are dead. You built a product, you sold it, you advertised when the numbers went down and you expect the numbers to go up. When the consumer moves, your product doesn't matter. And I asked the vision example or the newspaper example because it doesn't matter what a newspaper will do today to advertise that will make you wake up tomorrow and go and buy it. And that's what you need to start to understand. And why do I talk about customer choice? Because they're on the internet and their world is no longer limited. And they're young and they're fast and they control the narrative, not you. But we sit in our chairs and we think, yeah, and when we talk about data-driven decision making, we're like, yeah, we'll use data. It is the only way. You will hear things like agility thrown at you, you'll hear things like design thinking thrown at you. It's because you build with the customer. ABSA is here, we spoke in January. When somebody was unhappy with ABSA, he just put on the back of his car, you guys know the story, ABSA has the worst customer service in the world. Guess what happened? It's on WhatsApp groups, in 2 hours the whole of Kampala knows it. The next day, the COO or somebody senior in ABSA is going to meet him. That guy could have been earning 200K or 2 million or 200 million, it's irrelevant. He could make the CEO see him because the power is now on open platforms and the consumer controls the narrative. There's so many examples. In the interest of time, I'm not going to use them, but I'll just give you one other one. When Crane's players wanted to strike, they didn't call the minister. They called Robert Kaushenga because they know he has 150,000 people on Twitter. And Robert wakes up at 5 a.m. and sends a tweet. And after a couple of hours, all of you guys here in this room were making noise about cranes. FUFA is panicking after 2 hours. They're releasing a press statement. 4 hours later, they're paying the cranes allowance because they don't control the narrative. And these are the things that need to play out in your mind, and there's not enough time to cover them. Command and control is gone. The power is with the customer. Engage. We're going to play a video, and then we'll just rush through a few more things, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So my question was not really much of a question. Well, it's kind of like a statement. So let's say we're in 2019 and it's the elections, and a child wants to vote, but they don't have that opportunity to vote because they are underage. What if we make this change? What if the child studies all the things that different political parties want to change in the country, and they understand the depth of what they're doing, and they go through 1 or 2 assessments, and they have like the voting intelligence of an adult? Because just because somebody has a different age than another person does not necessarily mean that they should have less access to things because of their age or anything like that. But like many adults expect children to be to not have as much intelligence as adults, but if the child has surprisingly high intelligence, but they are still not allowed that just because of their age. It's not because of what's on the outside. It's because of what's on the inside.
For me, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how old that boy is. I've played this video a lot, so some of you have seen it. I'm sorry. It's context. That young man, how old he is, 11, it's not by chance that he's like that. They grow up in a world that's exponential. YouTube, by the time they're 2, their brains are exploding. It's not by chance. And ladies and gentlemen, what that should keep you up at night is that is your customer in Uganda. Average age 16. They're faster, smarter than you. They grow up in tools where digital technology is their playground. It's how they think, how they reason. And then you want to take them to Gayaza, or Kisubi, and kill their competence. Because my sister is here, she knows. We had a whole debate about her daughter leaving Gayaza. And I was pushing it, and let's not talk about that, there's not enough time. But the point is that that education system can no longer keep up with the speed. That education system is regurgitating knowledge. But let's not talk about education. What we're talking about here is that that is the norm. And that is the norm because the world is exponential. The internet means that people have access exponentially. Technology means they're absorbing faster, which will mean that they have choices. And this is not a technology presentation, but if you're in this room, you should be worried. Because what technology does is it increases our behavior and our aspects of convenience. So you hear a lot about cloud computing, which means we could take Gmail from one computer to another. Mobility, or the device, meant that we took our information everywhere. All the stuff was driving convenience and behavior, which we don't think about logically, but subconsciously, which is why you stay on certain platforms. Artificial intelligence means that not only are you taking your convenience with you everywhere, we know what you're doing, and will give you your service. A small example, in South Africa, there's a pizza company. If you order the same pizza twice, the third time you open your app, they'll tell you, Mr. Kasenene, the pizza is on the way to you. If you want to cancel your order, don't do anything. If you don't want to cancel your order. So technically, you didn't do anything. But those are what you call digital moments, guys. And in those digital moments, your expectation of convenience is here. And then you go and borrow money from a bank, and they ask you to fill 20 pages. And you're irritated, and you don't know why. But you already are not in that world. And when we talk about convenience and the customer and behavior, that's the only thing you should know. We'll talk about the platform economy on another day. But this is not slowing down. And what will happen is subconsciously every day you will kill another business in your environment. When you look at the global economy, the top 5 companies that hit $1 trillion in valuation, and we'll show them right now, you here in Uganda spend most of your time in those companies. And it's not about Silicon Valley. It's about they understand the platform effect. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't care where you are in the world. He knows that if a Ugandan guy has an internet connection, that's my customer. And then we talk to people about the fact that this is relevant in this world where the only thing is important is serve the guy online, learn from his data, and pivot, which has killed what you call product boundaries of competition. They don't exist. The first substrate that disappeared is geographical boundaries of competition because there are 16 million smartphones in Uganda and 15 million on Facebook. And you can't touch and fill Facebook. So the world doesn't exist in geography. It's open. It doesn't exist in product. It's open. There are people here from DSTV, they know this. DSTV in South Africa is being disrupted by Netflix. Netflix doesn't have an office in South Africa. 300,000 premium subscribers in South Africa have canceled their DSTV subscription in 18 months. Why? Because they get internet to the home and they have smart TV and they download Netflix. And 300,000 is roughly $500 million of revenue in 18 months to a company that doesn't even advertise in your country, that does no salesperson. But that's your world. And if you don't understand that world, that's going to happen to your business. You aren't going to be killed if you're Vision Group or if you're DSTV by UBC. By the UBC is a dead model. We can't even cover that today. You're going to be killed by somebody who is not in your industry. And that's the important thing. But guys, the important thing is not that. The important thing is the customer. Because why are those guys winning? Because they're in your life. Your smartphone is your life. Digital is not a channel. We struggle to articulate this. It is a way of life. It is an operating model.
And that operating model is not only dangerous because of how it's going to disrupt you, it's dangerous because it will challenge all of us here to the core. Because you will be talking about your product in your industry, and Safe Border will disrupt you. Because Safe Border has gone, and you guys are not seeing the dynamics, so watch out for Safe Border. They've gone from borders to now delivering food. And then they'll deliver e-commerce. And then they'll realize we need to do payments. And all of them that they're doing that is because of data. And they don't have the structures that you have. I was talking to somebody Stanbic the other day. A modern corporate to take a product to market takes about 12 months. They have NP1, NP2, NP3, then it has to go to the board, and the board is not going to sit for 6 months. That guy has gone to market and learned from the data and scaled. And those are the models that we try to talk to companies about. When you hear agility, agility means, somebody talked about it earlier, I think it was Dr. PK. Don't wait, go and learn. 99%, Dr. Barton said it, I have a slide on agility. Agility means 99% execution, 1% strategy. That's what agility means. You learn from the market, and if you're not agile, you will not get it. But you cannot be agile in a world where we're built around structure. We were built for the industrial era, so the modern business is product-based. And it is structural inertia that means we cannot be agile. We're not built for the modern consumer. And this is changing fast because you're now competing with a guy who doesn't need $100 million in dollars. And they're small, they're few. They use the internet tools, and they will disrupt you. It pains me. Why I get passionate, guys? I get passionate because I was in innovation. It's the only thing I can talk about. And I saw this happening. I was in the telecoms industry. We're 2,000 people when I moved to Johannesburg. They're 150 now. We can have a whole conversation. MTN is here, they're a sponsor, so I won't talk about how telecoms is being disrupted. But the point of this is that the speed doesn't just mean it's exciting for the user. It means the modern businesses are being disrupted, and your relevance from your job is going, which is why we talk about purpose, because you're not defined by your job. You're not defined by your title. And society gave us those definitions because of how society was. And we have to evolve that, because if we don't evolve that, you will not have the speed and agility to evolve. I don't like it when people read my bio, but they have to read my bio. 90% of what Dr. Latimer wrote, I'm not even that guy anymore. The last 18 months of my life have been more exponential than the previous 18 years. Because when your mind opens, you see infinite possibilities. But today your mind is defined by your product boundary, your industry, and you can't see them. The only way we can get you to see them is to free your mind, and we'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to run because there's not enough time to show all the stuff. I'm not going to talk about Jeff Bezos. I'm going to share this slide very quickly because it's very relevant. And why is it hard for us to see this world? Because the world exists in the orange. That's how our companies are set up. They're set up around product, and that's why you can't understand the customer. Guys, simple things. We all know the power of social media. 90% of the companies actually don't even use social media. They think they're using social media by going to social media to post something. They never even look at all the comments and the answers. We're in a world of engagement, not push. Listen. The customer will tell you. But we want to sell our product, and the customer has moved to Twitter. He won't buy your new vision. We want to talk about competition. You can't touch and feel him. I told you. Don't focus on the competition, focus on the customer. Because if you focus on the customer, it becomes clear. Because you know that the customer is here. So you're here, and you learn from his data. And he pivots all the time, which is exactly what they do. And my favorite, and there's not enough time to cover it, is purpose. The companies that care are the only ones that will make it. Because this shift is very hard. And guys, the Chiboko is going to end in a few minutes because we don't want blood pressure to go up because we need to donate blood. But the point of the passion and the sense of urgency is that this is already here, guys. It's not in US, it's not somewhere hidden. The internet in California is the same as the internet in Kampala. It's not different. And the only lag for most of your companies here is how quickly the internet spreads in your company, in your country, and how quickly smartphone penetration drives. And I'm going to tell you guys for free, and I'm not a futurist, we're about 2 years away from companies giving away smartphones. Let's not even talk about the internet, because the top 5 companies have been experimenting to make the internet available to everybody. And the only reason they've been doing that is that they know the moment a subscriber has access to the internet anywhere in the world, they'll monetize him. And when we talk about a global economic crisis, all those guys are hitting $1 trillion in valuation. When you try to talk to modern companies about tapping into those models, they can't because of structural problems. We have to change that. Purpose. And the only way we're going to see this world is if we let go of the old world. And the only way we're going to let go of the old world is if we tap into who we really are. Nabu talked about this. We are not defined by our jobs and our titles. We're defined by our inherent gifts, our values, our passions. And when that is clear, you will see this world. And when you see the world, I was talking to a friend of mine, you're not going to be worried that they've moved your cheese. Because that's why we're worried today. We only see one cheese. We see our New Vision group, our newspaper. I'm an editor-in-chief. And that's normal, because that's how we were raised. That world doesn't exist. And we can tap into this world. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to end with this, and then we'll play a video and close, because there's not enough time to cover all the things. And Dr. Dominic Barton talked about leadership and the attributes. And for me, this is those of us who've been in innovation for 3-4 years, we are not as old as Dr. Katongole, but we're bolding, because it is impossible to change human beings. Because change is hard. And we moved from trying to be strategic and digital to actually becoming philosophical. Because how do you get people to move? And you have to empathize, because everything I talked about, whether it's exciting or tough, is playing out for you. And you can leave this room extremely traumatized or extremely determined to do something different. And the modern leadership attributes are no longer all the things that you hear, all this fancy stuff. Humility. If you cannot be humble, you cannot learn. If you cannot learn, you cannot see this world. When we talk about a world of continuous learning and evolution, you have to be able to get over yourself, and that is really hard, ladies and gentlemen. That is the essence of this. Vulnerability. Asking questions. The modern CEO spends more time asking rather than telling, because you only have to do is provide an enabling environment, and the ideas will come to the surface. This is why this is about leadership and not technology, because technology is an enabler. And once you start asking questions and start being curious, you will see the answers. If you try and hire an IT guy and a few software people, it's not going to change your lives. Look at your phones, guys. How many apps do you have on your phone? 50, 60. How many do you use in a day? 5. All the other 45 are all the other guys who thought about digital as a nice, cool thing and were not really listening to the customer, not learning, not being agile, not pivoting at 100 kilometers per hour. This is what agility is. 99% execution. Don't wait. Start tomorrow. Actually, start today. Not next week, not next year. Because when you start to get disrupted, there's no coming back. But if you take the steps proactively, and by the way, we can help you, you will win. Because the world has changed. And the internet has made the world an exciting place, but it has also completely shattered every single boundary that you know. It has commoditized professions and has made knowledge ubiquitous, which means you are no longer the smartest guy in the room. If you are humble and you listen, you will tap into people's knowledge and you will grow. You have to think about solving problems. You have to care. You have to. You will not see the world. Sorry, I'm just going to skip this. There's one slide I want to show you, then we'll close. We'll play a video. It's very hard. Let's forget about that. Oh, yes. This is what the world is about, guys. This is what it really is about. And if you're really willing to tap into this, because all the knowledge is there. All Dr. Katongole had to do was Google. And Dr. Dominic Barton became a reality. $64,000. Google. Not complicated. Yet, if you don't have the willing to embrace the technology, you will miss the world. Focus on impact, not roles. Focus on continuous learning, not expertise. Guys, it's a hard paper, but expertise doesn't exist. We spend so much time reading and talking about expertise, and it blurs us from the ability to learn. And you need to care. Find your purpose. I'm going to stop there. I'll play a video, and then I will close after the video. It's a nice video. We need to lighten up. It was a bit intense, so we don't want to leave you guys feeling like the world has ended. Let's play a cool video.
On Super Bowl Sunday, the US is big, loud, and expensive. Sweden is Swedish. So how does Volvo compete with the other car brands and their millions spent on commercials during the game? We don't. We steal it.
When you see a car commercial during the game, any car commercial, not Volvo, you can tweet using the hashtag #VolvoContest.
The interception was simple. Their commercials would give you a chance to win one of our cars for someone you love. Just tweet their name to Volvo during any car commercial. When Mercedes wanted you to look here, people immediately went here. When Lexus spent 4.5 million for this, Twitter looked like this. Shifting the social conversation to Volvo. With up to 2,000 tweets per minute every time their commercials aired, we changed the Super Bowl conversation from one loud 30-second roar to an ongoing conversation about Volvo that lasted the entire game. We were the only car company to trend both nationally and globally.
So they weren't advertising on TV, they were letting all the other car companies do that for them.
And just like that, their millions of dollars worth of car commercials turned into a social conversation about Volvo, helping our XC60 to a 70% sales increase the month following the game, the highest in its segment.
Fascinating stuff. Touch hearts and minds, guys. It's not about competition. Think about your customer. Where is he? How does he feel? And the go-to-markets models today are irrelevant. You know, my friend and I talk about the matrix. We really are living in the matrix. You can choose to take the red pill and live in the construct that you think is still real, which has changed, or you can take the green pill and go down this amazing world that has infinite possibilities, but is going to be extremely uncomfortable because it challenges everything that brought us up here today. But it has infinite possibilities. Focus on culture, on purpose. Learning is the most important substrate. And we don't use the word agility by chance. We use the word agility because you're learning from the customer. The power has shifted to the customer. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to be here. I wish you a very nice evening and enjoy the rest of